A point about thinking about turning your sewing experience into a business. Let's talk about the things that you're going to need. Now, we all know we need to have the right tools for the trade. First of all, you need to look at what skills do you have at this particular point that you're going to be using to turn it into a business. You need to have absolute clarity on what kind of services or products you're going to be offering, and that can determine what types of machinery, what equipment, what all the things that you will need. At the moment, I'm in my classroom. I teach designing, sewing, and dressmaking, creating your own wardrobes. That's part of what I do, besides the fact that I'm a fashion designer and I'm specialised in bridal wear. Okay, so it's a bit of a mess behind me because it's actually very much a working area. So I don't have students at the moment. So the days they're not here, I use my classroom to do all my cutting. So you can see behind me already, I've got tabletops with trestles on, which I use as my tables to cut. So you're very important, you're going to need a place to cut. And I look at a lot of YouTube videos and I see them working on the floor, and my back goes out to them, because there's no way you can work for hours and hours sort of folded over, cutting on the floor. I'm sure it's going to affect your posture and your spine over time. So it's all about, working on hip height when you're busy cutting, so you're doing less damage and less strain on your body posture. Because if this is going to be a full-time business, or even part-time, working towards full-time, it's about you also, looking after your health, and your wellness is very important. So behind me, I've got the tables with the trestles on, which helps to do the cutting. So if I have to go and stand up, you can sort of see it's kind of comfortable for me to sort of cut. My back's not going to get sore when I'm doing my cutting. If you're very tall, you can even maybe have the trestles a bit higher up, that you can have the table at more of a hip height for you to work. What kind of sewing machine do you have? Do you have, just a commercial sewing machine that's got the basic stitches that you need, which is your normal straight stitch, your stitching that you can change the stitching lengths for ease, a zigzag stitch. That's basically what you need on a straight sewing machine, as well as your buttonhole attachment, okay, and of course a zip foot attachment as well. So those are kind of the foots that you might need on your sewing machine. And then of course an overlocker would be absolutely essential, because you want to finish off your garments that they look absolutely professional, and you feel very proud of turning the garment inside out, or a client will look at the garment in the inside to see your workmanship, and you feel absolutely confident that you have given them a good product and a good service. The other thing is, if you're going to be doing lots and lots of sewing, perhaps look at getting yourself an industrial sewing machine. I've got both. I've got a banana sewing machine, a commercial sewing machine, and I have got an industrial sewing machine. Because I do a lot of sewing, and I found that, industrial sewing machine can handle the actual volume as well as the speed. It works very fast, and I like to work very quick. That's when I'm sewing. If not, I'm giving it to a seamstress to sew for me as well. They would use their domestic machines or whatever machines they have got as well. Alright, then you need to look at your patterns. The more organized you are, the quicker you can find your patterns, and the quicker you can find all your trims and accessories that you're going to be using. So, and also you can quite easily, access them to see what you've got. So if someone comes in as a customer and they want a couple of designs made up, you know what patterns you have, what haberdashery that you've got, what you would need to go and purchase, because you're kind of organized with what you have in your stash and your stock and your trims, etc. So let's talk about patterns for a second. So with the patterns, what I've done is I've created quite a few arch level files. So this is my fabric swatch one. Here is the patterns. Okay, so what I do is I write down what's going to be inside the files, okay, and then I take out the actual pattern, and I leave the cover, and I put the cover into the pockets, okay. And the actual pattern itself is in a Ziploc packet with a photostat of the front of the pattern. So when I do flip this, I can actually see the back of the pattern of how much fabric that I would need, and any sort of notions, haberdashery, etc. that I would need. And what I do is I basically put my files into categories of either dresses or skirts or trousers. I'll go to the front of this one. So this particular one is trousers, skirts, shirts and tops. Now I might have more than one pack like this, so I've got quite a few files with all my different patterns in here. So if I do have a client coming in and I don't really need to make a pattern, she can actually go through this and have a look at the file and select patterns that she wants. Or I actually will make my own patterns, draft the patterns from a basic block or from the client's measurements. So that means I also would need to have rulers. Let's have a look at the rulers. So if you're going to be making patterns or even using a normal commercial pattern and using it as basically as a template and designing from that sort of basic block or template, you're also going to need perhaps a French curve, a set square, as well as a meter length ruler, and of course you're going to need your tape measure, and I suggest have a few of them. Depending on what you're going to be using, what metric system you're using, this particular tape measure, one side has centimeters and the other side has got inches. I prefer this particular tape measure because you get some that have got the inches and centimeters all on one side of the tape measure, which can become rather confusing by the eye when you are busy working out your measurements. So in South Africa we use centimeters. I know other countries, quite a few other countries, rather use the inches depending on their metric system. Okay, so now we've looked at the patterns. I've got the patterns in my files. You need to have your sewing machine, your overlocker. You need to have your patterns. And here is a pack here, for instance, where here's the photostat of the pattern, and the patterns gets put in here and gets closed with the ziplock. And then I have like little drawer sets, and I put my patterns in in sort of like rows. And then I actually label the drawer saying that it is either tops or it's pants or it's skirts, so I know exactly where to look for it. Or if it's stretch material, I have a separate drawer section for all the stretch fabric patterns because they are totally different to woven material. Okay, so we've now spoken about our patterns, about the rulers and stationery. You need, of course, you need pens, keys. You would also need a tracing wheel. You would need a tracing wheel and carbon paper if you're going to be tracing from commercial patterns. Okay, then what I also do is for every type of fabrics that I have, I've created a file for my fabrics. Let's say I buy in bulk, so I might buy lining, I might buy black lining, white lining, depending on what kind of lining that you're going to be using. Sort of what services you're going to be offering. You're probably going to buy some fabrics in bulk, like for instance, I might buy lining in bulk and tulle because I'm doing more bridal wear, and I buy lots of zips, but let's talk about the material for now. So I will buy lots of, the lining, I'll buy tulle, organza, the type of things I know I'm going to be using over and over again for bridal wear, either white or cream. And then what I'll do is I'll actually, create a fabric file and put a sample of the material into the file with maybe the date on, so I know that I've got 20 meters of this material on the date of September, and as I use it, I will write there, start subtracting how much meters I've used, so I know how much I've got. And sometimes when I'm doing a clothing range, which could be more of sort of casual wear or evening wear, whatever, what I will do is I will also, put the fabrics. I will actually make a little mark of the fabrics in the file. Sorry, this has just come loose. Okay, and then I'll actually mention how much material I've still got, and I've used it for certain styles, and how many meters that I've got still left on my stash. So, put samples of the material in my files, and I'll make a note as well, what the experience was with sewing this particular material, and perhaps what pattern I've used with it as well. And I teach my students that because they don't really know much about material, and you can't really study everything about material. Material is about your personal choice too, that you're actually feeling it. You like the way it falls, the way it feels, the thickness, the texture. And then that your personal preference would be for you as well as for a client. So a client can also go through my file and see all the samples of materials that I have in here, and they can choose which materials they particularly like. Or I know a certain style will look great in this particular material, and my client doesn't know what kind of material I'm talking about because they don't have knowledge of the material, then I will show them a sample in my file, and they can take it out and they can actually feel it. I don't know why the light keeps changing. Okay, so that's for me to know how much material I've got, as well as for a client to actually feel the material and to see it. And if you are still learning to sew, it's about you keeping some samples in your file, make little notes, and then say, it was great to work with, I used this particular pattern, I made this particular garment, and I was really very impressed with the material. Or absolutely hate it and will never use it again. And that's also okay. It's about you determining what kind of materials that you like and you don't like. That's how you're growing your particular experience. Okay, so going back to being more organized, it's also about putting all your threads in containers. I put all my dark threads in one container, my light threads in a different container. So I know that one particular container has got all the dark threads and the other one has got the light threads. I do that with my zips, I do it with my hooks and eyes, I do it with my buttons. With all my different types of trims and haberdasheries, I keep them in separate drawers or separate containers, and I put them into packets, either Ziploc packets, easy to see, or I pack them by colour. Because you actually need to, it's about you being organized, knowing, and when you want to go look for something, you can find it very quickly, and you know exactly where the things would be, so that you need to know, do I need to go and buy more, or do I have enough in my particular stash? The other thing would be is your books. Okay, let's have a look at books. One of my actual cupboards where I've got quite a bit of my books, and I've got my fabrics sort of packed inside here. So all the materials get put into this cupboard, and there's another shelf at the bottom with all the files in. So what I do is I kind of keep all my books in this particular cabinet, and I've also got some books on the other side over here which you can't really see. But let's say, for instance, I've got a couple of the Burda magazines. Okay, I've got quite a few of these because there's a lot of patterns in here, and this is actually quite cost effective. If you buy a Burda magazine, they have anything between 20 and 30 patterns, sometimes even more, in a Burda, which you can actually just trace off, and you've got some patterns that you can be using from the Burda instead of buying individual patterns. Now, if you look at the Burda, it actually shows you how many patterns it's got on the inside. So if I bring that close, you can see all the different patterns that's in here. And it shows you the variations of how you can, change the pattern into different styles and looks. This can also save you a lot of time and money if you've got these patterns to trace them off and to use them for your clients' orders. I also have a lot of fashion magazines as well that I keep, and then I've also got sewing guide books as well. It's quite a thick old one, because sometimes you might just forget how to sew something, or maybe you weren't taught. Now, I went to fashion designing college, and when I went to fashion designing school, they don't teach you how to sew. They teach you how to design and make patterns, and how to think like a designer. They don't even teach you how to run a business. They just teach you how to draft patterns and to be a designer. That is it. There's no entrepreneurship skills and stuff that they teach you, and how to build up a rapport and relationship with your clients, as well as how to identify what a client would want, and also to look at their skin tone, what their body shape, their bust size, all their imperfections of what you could recommend which would suit them the best, not just to try and get them your latest design that you've now created. You can make it, or what's on the runway, or like what's really big in fashion right now, and it might not even suit them. So you must be able to read and understand your client. So also maybe have some books about image and consultancy, that type of thing. So here's an old book that I've got as well about image and change your life guide. It's all about the different types of colors and styles that will suit your different types of skin tones. So So you need to start getting books about, what you're going to be offering as a service to your particular clients. So I'll just turn this around, and then you can see that here is one of my overlockers, and here is my industrial sewing machine that I use, and it outlooks my garden, so it's very peaceful for me to work over here. Because now I can actually look out into the garden. I've got natural light coming into my work area. This stays in the classroom. The overlocker will go into another room that I have a sewing station, an overlocking station, as well as a pressing room. Now, the other thing you need to look at is getting is a decent iron. This is my pressing room. So you can see I've got a steam iron. Okay, so it's a normal iron, but it's got sort of a very nice sort of steam pressure, which I use for my gowns. I have got a press cloth. I have a spray bottle with water in. It's usually filter water. Then I've got my long arm, which I use to either do side seams or a sleeve, or trouser leg. I put that inside. I tunnel inside the leg or the sleeve or along this side seam, and I press the seams open. This definitely does help with the pressing. And I've got a ham roll, and then I've just got my own version of a clapper. So this is a piece of plank. So once I do my pressing and I want to take all that steam away and keep it nice and flat, I just use my piece of wood, which is a plank. So this is basically my pressing room. And of course I've got my box with an extra sort of towel that I can roll if I need to create a curve around the bust line or the shoulder. And this is for to now do the tulle area of a wedding's, of a bridal skirt. I'll just put it underneath and sort of put the tulle around it and press on it. So yes, just sort of cut out garments, and a big white cloth which I lay on the floor if the garment is very wide. So this is just my basically a pressing room. I have a big couch on with all the plastic bags that are going to go over the garments, and then I have a rail behind me where I hang all the garments that need to be pressed or collected, with the plastic bags going over the garments. So this is just my pressing room. But we've spoken about our patterns, we've spoken about our sewing machine, our overlocker, our files, fabric swatches, rulers, patterns that you're going to need, books that you're going to be needing. So there's quite a few things you're going to need, as well as you would need to have an area where your client could come in and try on the clothes, with a mirror, maybe a carpet where they can stand on where it's not cold, and a place for them to actually try on, get unchanged, have your garments hanging up on a rail perhaps, so they can actually see what you've made or what they're going to be trying on. It's really hanging on a rail. Try and get all matching coat hangers. Try and make it look as very zhuzh and very professional as possible. Create a space or a room into a little design area where you've got a couple of garments on a mannequin or on hanging on a rail that they can actually go in, they can see, what you are all about. If you are selling other items like perhaps shoes or accessories or handbags or another particular style of garments, display it so that people can see what you are all about, what you're selling, what you're doing. And then they can buy it, or they can tell their friends about it, and it'll actually grow your clientele. Okay, so I think I've kind of covered quite a few things that you would need to start up your own sewing business from home. I'll just add a few more photographs. So if you really like this, please give me a thumbs up to help grow my channel as well. And click subscribe and share. Until next time, this is Tania Sutherland, fashion designer and educator about turning fashion and sewing into a business. Check my online courses. I will actually put the links at the bottom that you can have a look at as well. It's all about how to start your A to Z clothing collection, how to start an alteration business, or even just to start a sewing business, where to start, how to go about it, and to get absolute clarity on what it is that you really want to do. Okay, until next time, just rock your style and do what you absolutely love.